The warning klaxons of Defense Station Aegis shattered the peaceful silence of deep space, their urgent wails echoing through crystalline corridors. Commander Vexthor's iridescent scales shifted from their usual calm azure to a sharp amber as all 6 of his optical sensors focused on the main display. After 30 cycles of protecting this sector's borders, he had never witnessed anything like this. "Impossible," he whispered, his secondary voice box vibrating with tension. "Run the scan again." Senior Analyst Kira Mull's appendages danced across the quantum interface. "Confirmed, Commander. The vessel's signature matches no known configuration in our database, but its energy patterns." Her voice trailed off as her own scales pulsed with anxiety. "Speak freely, Analyst." "Sir, they match the theoretical profiles we have for human ships." The command center fell silent. Humans. The very word sent ripples of unease through the gathered crew. According to official records, humanity had been lost decades ago, when their solar system was evacuated ahead of a devastating cosmic event. The evacuation fleet had never reached its destination, presumably lost to the same gravitational anomalies that had threatened Earth. At least, that was the story every child in the Alliance learned. Vexthor studied the holographic projection of the unknown vessel. Its design was both elegant and alien, smooth curves interrupted by angular protrusions that could be weapon ports or sensor arrays. Unlike the crystalline architecture of Alliance ships, this vessel seemed to be forged from darkness itself, absorbing rather than reflecting the distant starlight. "Sir," Communications Officer Zentar called out, his voice unusually steady despite his rapidly shifting scale patterns. "The vessel is broadcasting. In perfect Alliance standard. Put it through." The command center's acoustic field hummed to life, with a voice that sent chills through Vexthor's thermal regulation system. It was smooth, confident, and undeniably human. "Defense Station Aegis, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the HSS Prometeo. We come seeking audience with the High Council regarding the Stellar Archive incident. We know what really happened 40 cycles ago. And we know you do too." Vexthor's scales involuntarily shifted to deep purple, the color of profound uncertainty. The Stellar Archive incident was classified at the highest levels. Even he, a senior commander, only knew of its existence because of a drunk High Counselor at last cycle's diplomatic gathering. "Security Chief," he called out, "what's the status of our defense grid?" "Fully operational, sir, but..." The security chief's scales flickered between tactical red and confused green. "The human vessel's shields are unlike anything we've encountered. They're not just defensive. They appear to be generating some kind of temporal distortion field." Time itself seemed to slow as Vexthor weighed his options. Protocol demanded he treat any unauthorized vessel as hostile, especially one claiming to be from a supposedly extinct species. But something about this situation felt wrong. The pieces didn't fit. Why broadcast openly? Why mention the archive? "Captain Chen," he finally responded, "you are in restricted Alliance space. Your presence here violates 17 different security protocols. However," he paused, his scales settling into a determined gray, "your mention of the archive suggests you possess information of significant importance. I am authorized to grant you limited diplomatic status, provided you power down your weapon systems and accept an escort detail." The human captain's response was immediate. "Agreed, Commander. Weapons powering down now. But I suggest we proceed quickly. According to our calculations, we have approximately 48 standard hours before they realize we've broken through their temporal barrier." "They?" Vexthor questioned. "The ones who really destroyed the evacuation fleet. The ones who've been manipulating both our species for decades. The Void Collective." Captain Chen's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "And they're coming to make sure we don't expose their existence to the Alliance." As if in response to her words, the station's long-range sensors began picking up unusual gravitational distortions at the edge of their scanning range. Vexthor watched as his crew's scales collectively shifted to alert patterns. Whatever was coming, it was big. "Captain Chen," he said, making a decision that would either end or save his career, "you have 20 minutes to dock and present your evidence. After that, we'll either be allies or enemies. Choose wisely." As the Prometeo began its approach to the docking bay, Vexthor couldn't shake the feeling that he was witnessing the beginning of something momentous. The next few hours would either rewrite the history of two civilizations or confirm humanity's reputation for deception and chaos. Either way, the truth about the stellar archive was finally going to come to light. And judging by the rapidly approaching gravitational anomalies, the Void Collective wasn't going to let that happen without a fight. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the crystalline conference chamber of Defense Station Aegis, her reflection fractured across 1,000 prismatic surfaces. The room's alien beauty contrasted sharply with the tension filling it. Around the luminescent table, 6 Alliance officers sat with their scales shifting through various shades of uncertainty and suspicion. At the head of the table, Commander Vexthor's amber scales pulsed steadily as he studied the holographic data streaming from the quantum cube Sarah had brought aboard. "This can't be accurate," Vexthor said, his secondary voice box thrumming with disbelief. "The evacuation fleet. We received confirmation of its destruction. All hands lost." Sarah's dark eyes reflected the dancing lights of the hologram. "What you received was a carefully crafted lie. The truth is far more complex." She gestured, and the hologram shifted to show a massive stellar phenomenon. "This is what your scientists detected approaching Earth's solar system 40 cycles ago. A quantum filament capable of destroying all organic life in its path. The Alliance's decision to evacuate humanity was genuine, perhaps the most noble act in your civilization's history." The security chief, his scales now a deep blue of contemplation, leaned forward. "Then what went wrong? Where did the evacuation fleet actually go?" "They were intercepted," Sarah replied, manipulating the hologram to show a new image, sleek, dark ships emerging from what appeared to be tiers in space itself. The Void Collective had been watching both our civilizations for centuries. They saw something that terrified them. The potential of human innovation combined with Alliance wisdom. They couldn't allow us to unite. The hologram shifted again, showing the massive evacuation fleet surrounded by the mysterious vessels. But before Sarah could continue, the station's alert system blared to life. Senior Analyst Kiramel's scales flashed urgent patterns as she accessed her neural interface with the station's sensors. "Commander, multiple gravitational anomalies forming at the edge of our defense perimeter. Energy signatures match the vessels from Captain Chen's historical data." Vexthor rose, his scales now pulsing with tactical red. "How many?" 7. No, 12 vessels emerging. Their configuration suggests a battle formation. Sarah's expression hardened. "They're earlier than we calculated. The Void Collective must have detected our temporal wake when we breached their barrier." She turned to Vexthor. "Commander, I know you have no reason to trust me, but what happens in the next few minutes will determine the fate of both our species." Again. Vexthor's scales shifted through several patterns before settling on a determined gray. "Explain. Quickly." The Void Collective didn't just attack the evacuation fleet. They split it. Half the humans were sent to a temporal pocket universe, forced to advance their technology in isolation. The other half reached their intended destination, but with altered memories. 2 experiments running in parallel. They wanted to see which would produce better weapons for their own use. The hologram changed one final time, showing the Prometheo's sensor readings of the approaching fleet. The dark ships seemed to drink in the very light around them, their surfaces rippling like liquid shadow. "My ship, the Prometeo, represents humanity's attempt to break free from their temporal prison. But we couldn't have done it without help from the inside, from Alliance scientists who discovered the truth and chose to act. The same scientists who hid crucial data in your stellar archive." The station shuddered as the first long-range scans from the Void Collective fleet reached them. Vex Thor's tactical displays lit up with threat assessments, none of them encouraging. The collective is here to ensure their experiment remains controlled, Sarah continued, her voice taking on an edge of urgency. They'll destroy this station, erase all evidence, and adjust everyone's memories, just like they've done countless times before. Unless what? Vex Thor demanded, even as his crew began battle preparations around them. Unless we show them their greatest fear was justified. Unless humans and the Alliance work together, combining our knowledge and capabilities in ways they never anticipated. Sarah pulled out a small device, its surface a mix of Alliance crystal technology and human quantum engineering. This prototype is what let us escape their temporal prison. Imagine what we could accomplish if we had access to your full technological database. Another tremor ran through the station as the Void Collective fleet drew closer. Vex Thor studied Sarah's face, his multiple eyes taking in every micro-expression. In his centuries of service, he had learned to read human emotions despite their alien nature. What he saw now was not deception, but desperate hope. "Security Chief," he commanded, "give Captain Chen's crew full access to our defensive systems. Kiramel, begin integrating their temporal data with our quantum matrices." He turned back to Sarah. "You have 1 hour to prove that humanity and the Alliance together are more formidable than either of us alone. After that," Sarah nodded grimly, "after that, it won't matter. Because if we fail, none of us will remember this conversation ever happened." As the crew rushed to their stations, the void ships drew ever closer, their dark forms eclipsing distant stars. The next hour would determine not just the fate of Defense Station Aegis, but the future of two civilizations that should have been allies 4 decades ago. And this time, the Void Collective wouldn't find it so easy to maintain their control over either species. The heart of Defense Station Aegis pulsed with unprecedented activity as human and Alliance crews worked frantically to merge their technologies. Deep in the station's secure data center, the Stellar Archive's crystalline storage matrices hummed with energy as decades of carefully hidden information began to surface. Sarah Chen's fingers flew across the hybrid interface she and Kiramel had jury-rigged from Alliance crystals and human quantum processors. The Archive's security protocols were unlike anything she'd encountered during her years in the temporal prison, but they were falling one by one to the combined assault of human ingenuity and Alliance expertise. Another temporal barrier breached. Kiramel announced, her scales flickering with excitement as new data cascaded across their screens. "These encryption patterns, they're not Alliance or human. They're Void Collective," Sarah finished, her eyes widening as she absorbed the information. "Look at these timestamps. They've been manipulating both our species for far longer than we thought." Above them, the station shuddered as another gravitational wave from the approaching Void fleet washed over their shields. Commander Vex Thor's voice crackled over the comm system. "Status report. What have you found?" Sarah's expression hardened as she pieced together the fragments of truth emerging from the archive. "Commander, the Void Collective isn't just some advanced alien species. They're us. Or rather, what we might become. They're from a potential future where humanity and the Alliance never united, where both our species took darker paths." She pushed more data to the command center's displays. The temporal prison wasn't just an experiment, it was quarantine. They'd been trying to prevent their own creation by keeping us separated. But in doing so, they're actually ensuring their own existence. Incoming, the security chief's warning barely preceded a massive impact that sent tremors through the station's crystalline structure. They're not just attacking. They're trying to dock. Multiple breach points detected. Vex Thor's tactical experience took over. Security teams to all breach points. "Captain Chen, whatever you're going to find in that archive, find it quickly. We're running out of time." Sarah turned to Kiramel, whose scales now pulsed with determined patterns. "The real reason they destroyed the evacuation fleet. It's here somewhere. Help me search for any data about Project Mirror." As they dug deeper into the archive, The sounds of battle began echoing through the station's corridors. The Void Collective's boarding parties had breached the outer defenses, their advanced technology allowing them to phase through solid matter. But they were meeting unexpected resistance as human and Alliance defenders worked in unprecedented coordination. Found it. Kira Mill's scales flashed triumphantly. Project Mirror was. By the ancient stars. Her voice trailed off in shock. Sarah quickly scanned the data, her face growing pale. Commander, you need to see this. The evacuation fleet wasn't just carrying humans to safety. It was carrying the results of a joint human-alliance research project, one that would have allowed both our species to transcend our physical forms, to evolve beyond the need for biological bodies. That's why they split the fleet, Vex Thor realized, his voice tight with controlled anger. They couldn't risk us achieving that evolution naturally, because then we'd be able to see through their deceptions. A new alarm blared through the station. Multiple temporal anomalies forming. The sensor officer reported. They're trying to create a time lock around the station. Sarah's hands moved with desperate speed across the interface. Not just a time lock. Look at these readings. They're trying to erase us from history completely. Without this moment of discovery, without this cooperation between our species, their future remains secure. The station's lights flickered as power was diverted to the shields. In the corridors above, human and Alliance security teams fought side by side against shadowy figures that seemed to flicker in and out of reality. But in the archive chamber, Sarah had found something else, something that made her breath catch. "Commander," she called out, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "I know why they're really here. The archive doesn't just contain records of their manipulation. It contains the original Project Mirror data. If we can implement even a fraction of it, we could break their temporal control over both our species," Vex Thor finished. "How long?" 10 minutes to download the core data. Another 5 to integrate it with the prototype we used to escape the temporal prison. "But Commander," Sarah hesitated, "this goes against everything we thought we knew about physics, about consciousness itself. If we do this, there's no going back." Through the comm system, they could hear the battles raging throughout the station growing more intense. The Void Collective's forces were pressing their advantage, using their phase-shifting technology to bypass defenses that had never been designed to stop enemies who could walk through walls. But they hadn't counted on one thing: the speed with which humans and the Alliance could adapt when working together. Already, Alliance crystal technology was being modified with human quantum principles to create new types of barriers, ones that could trap the phase-shifted borders between states of matter. "Captain Chen," Vex Thor's voice carried the weight of command, "you have your 15 minutes. Security teams will hold the line. Whatever Project Mirror was meant to do, it's time to finish it. Let's show our future selves that evolution doesn't have to lead to darkness." As Sarah and Kira began the dangerous process of extracting and implementing the Project Mirror data, the fate of 2 civilizations, past, present, and future, hung in the balance. The next 15 minutes would determine whether humanity and the Alliance would remain trapped in the Void Collective's temporal web, or break free to forge a new destiny together. The battle for Defense Station Aegis reached fever pitch as Sarah Chen and Kira raced against time to implement Project Mirror's code. Throughout the station's crystalline corridors, the impossible was becoming reality. Human and Alliance defenders fighting as one against the shadowy forms of their own potential future. Temporal distortion at 70%. The sensor officer's voice carried barely controlled panic. 5 minutes until complete time lock. In the command center, Commander Vex Thor watched as another section of his station turned gray on the tactical display, marking areas where the Void Collective had managed to alter local time. His scales shifted through patterns of tactical calculation as he coordinated the defense. Status of Project Mirror integration. 8 minutes remaining. Sarah's voice came through strained but determined. "The quantum matrices are accepting the code, but we're seeing some resistance from the crystallizes. Kira is attempting to stabilize the integration." A sudden explosion rocked the station as a Void collective boarding party breached another security checkpoint. Through the command center's monitors, Vexthor watched as the invaders emerged from their temporal rifts, their forms a disturbing blend of human and Alliance characteristics, twisted by centuries of technological evolution gone wrong. But this time, something was different. A squad of human security officers had modified their weapons with Alliance crystal focusing arrays, while Alliance defenders had integrated human quantum targeting systems into their traditional energy weapons. The hybrid technology proved devastatingly effective against the phase-shifted attackers, forcing them to remain solid long enough to be neutralized. "Commander," the security chief's scales flashed urgent patterns. "They're changing tactics." Multiple temporal signatures converging on the archive chamber. Vexthor's decision was immediate. All remaining security teams to the archive. Nothing reaches Captain Chen and Hiramil until Project Mirror is complete. He paused, then added, "And get me a direct channel to their leader." Moments later, a new hologram materialized in the command center. A figure that caused every Alliance officer's scales to shift to colors of instinctive revulsion. It appeared both human and Alliance, yet neither, its form constantly shifting between states of matter. "Commander Vexthor," the figure's voice resonated on multiple frequencies simultaneously. "You cannot comprehend the damage you are about to cause. The merger of human and Alliance consciousness must not occur naturally. The chaos would be uncontrollable." "The only chaos here," Vexthor replied, his scales settling into a pattern of absolute certainty, "is what you created by trying to prevent it. We've seen the archive's records. Every attempt you've made to keep our species separate has only pushed us closer to becoming you." The figure's form rippled with what might have been anger. "We are the culmination of both species' drive for perfection. We transcended the limitations of flesh and crystal alike. We achieved what Project Mirror only dreamed of." "No," Sarah's voice cut in through the comm system. "You're what happens when that transcendence is forced, when it comes from fear instead of cooperation. Project Mirror was meant to be a choice, not an inevitability." In the archive chamber, Sarah and Kiramul worked with desperate speed as the station's defenses began to buckle. The Project Mirror code was unlike anything either of them had seen. A perfect fusion of human intuition and Alliance precision, designed to allow both species to evolve together rather than apart. 3 minutes to time block. The sensor officer's warning was followed by another station-wide tremor. The Void collective leader's hologram flickered. "You have no conception of the variables at play. We have run this scenario across millions of temporal iterations. Every time humanity and the Alliance unite naturally, the resulting evolution threatens the very fabric of space-time. Our intervention is the only way to ensure a controlled transcendence." 2 minutes until Project Mirror completion, Kiramul announced, her scales pulsing with effort as she channeled power through the crystal matrices. Vexthor stood from his command chair, addressing the hologram directly. "You speak of control, of running scenarios. But you've forgotten the most fundamental truth about both our species. We defy prediction. We exceed limitations. And most importantly, we choose our own path." The station shuddered as another temporal wave washed over it. Through the security feeds, Vexthor could see human and Alliance defenders holding the line outside the archive chamber, their hybrid weapons creating a barrier that even phase-shifted attackers couldn't penetrate. "Sarah," he called out, "whatever Project Mirror is going to do, it needs to happen now. We're out of time." In the archive chamber, Sarah looked at Kiramul, seeing her own determination reflected in the Alliance officer's shifting scales. "Ready?" Kiramul's scales settled into a pattern that Sarah had learned meant absolute commitment. "Ready." Initiating final sequence. As they activated Project Mirror's core protocols, the Void collective leader's hologram began to distort. "You don't understand. We are not your enemy. We are your salvation. Without our guidance, the power you're about to unleash will." The hologram cut off as Project Mirror surged to life, its energy cascading through the station's crystal architecture. In that moment, as human quantum consciousness met Alliance crystalline perception, both species caught a glimpse of what their dark future selves had feared. Not chaos, but harmony. Not destruction, but creation. Not forced evolution, but natural growth. The time lock collapsed as waves of transformation began spreading through the station. The battle for the future of both species had entered its final phase, and the outcome would determine not just their fate, but the very nature of consciousness itself in their galaxy. The activation of Project Mirror transformed Defense Station Aegis into something unprecedented in the history of either species. As the merged quantum crystalline consciousness spread through its structure, the very walls seemed to pulse with new awareness. Human and Alliance defenders found themselves connected on a level that transcended physical form, their thoughts and perceptions flowing together in perfect harmony. Sarah Chen opened her eyes to a reality that had been transformed. The archive chamber now existed in multiple states simultaneously, its crystalline surfaces refracting not just light but consciousness itself. Beside her, caramel scales shifted through colors that had never existed before, expressing emotions that had no names in either human or Alliance languages. "Remarkable," Caramel whispered, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated with Sarah's quantum-enhanced perception. This is what they feared. This unity. Through their newly shared consciousness, they could feel the Void Collective's forces throughout the station, experiencing the same transformation. The phase-shifted attackers found themselves caught not between states of matter, but between versions of history. And in each one, they saw the mistake they had made. "Commander," Sarah called out, her thoughts reaching the command center through paths that weren't there moments before. "Are you seeing this?" Vex Thor stood in his command center, his multiple eyes perceiving layers of reality that his species had never dreamed possible. Through the station's enhanced sensors, he watched as the Void Collective's ships began to change. Their dark hulls, designed to absorb light and hope alike, were cracking, revealing the light of consciousness within. "Their temporal prison is breaking down," he observed, his scales shifting through patterns that told the story of universes being reborn. Not just for us, but for them as well. They're remembering who they were before fear drove them to become what they are. The Void Collective leader's hologram reappeared, but now it was stable, showing a form that was neither human nor Alliance, but a natural evolution of both. "What have you done?" it asked, but the question carried wonder rather than accusation. "We've shown you another way," Sarah replied, walking through walls that were now as permeable to her as thought itself. Project Mirror wasn't about transcending physical form. It was about transcending the barriers between us. All of us. Throughout the station, human and Alliance crew members were discovering abilities that neither species had possessed alone. Alliance crystalline technology, merged with human quantum understanding, created interfaces between mind and matter that defied conventional physics. But unlike the Void Collective's forced evolution, this transformation maintained the essential nature of both species while allowing them to grow together. "The time stream is stabilizing," reported the sensor officer, his consciousness now extending through the station's enhanced detection systems. "Multiple futures are resolving into something new." Through their shared perception, they all saw it, the futures that the Void Collective had tried to prevent. Thousands of worlds where humans and the Alliance evolved together naturally, each discovery building on the last, each challenge overcome through cooperation rather than conflict. And in none of them did they become the dark, fearful beings that the Collective had represented. "You weren't our future," Vex Thor addressed the Collective leader, understanding flowing between them. "You were our warning, a reminder of what happens when we let fear of the unknown drive us apart." The leader's form began to shift, becoming more aligned with the natural evolution they now saw possible. "We were wrong," it acknowledged, its voice carrying the weight of centuries of misguided intervention. "In trying to prevent chaos, we became its agents. But now you have a choice," Sarah finished. "The same choice we all have. To evolve together, naturally, or to remain trapped in the prison of your own making." Across the station, the battle had transformed into something else entirely. Former enemies found themselves sharing memories, understanding spreading like ripples through the quantum crystalline network that Project Mirror had created. The void-collected ships, once instruments of temporal manipulation, began to resonate with the same frequency of consciousness that now filled Aegis. Caramel scales shifted to a color that represented a future previously unimaginable. The archive. It's changing. The records, they're not just data anymore. They're becoming a bridge between all possible versions of our species. Not just a bridge, Vex Thor realized, a foundation. The beginning of what we were always meant to become. The temporal distortions that had threatened to lock the station in time now served a different purpose, carrying the changes outward like ripples in the fabric of space-time. Across the galaxy, both humans and Alliance members would begin to feel the first touches of this new consciousness, not as an invasion or forced evolution, but as an invitation to grow together. Sarah looked out at the stars through walls that had become windows into infinity. They tried to write our future, she said, but instead they helped us find our way back to the path we should have taken 40 years ago. The void-collected ships began to dissolve, not into destruction but into transformation, their crews choosing to join the natural evolution they had fought so long to prevent. Defense Station Aegis, once a guardian of boundaries between species, became a beacon of unity, its quantum crystalline consciousness reaching out to touch minds across the galaxy. Commander Vex Thor, his scales now shifting through colors that told the story of universes being born, gave his final order as a purely Alliance officer. Send word to every world, every station, every ship. Tell them that the boundaries between us have fallen. Tell them that the future we feared has become the future we choose. Tell them, we are no longer alone. The message spread across the galaxy, carried by both traditional communications and the new quantum crystalline network that Project Mirror had created. But it wasn't just words that spread, it was understanding. The truth of what happened at Defense Station Aegis would be felt rather than merely known, experienced rather than simply recorded. And in that experience, both species found what they had been searching for all along, not transcendence from their physical forms, but transcendence from their limitations, not an escape from who they were, but an evolution into who they could become together. The dawn of their unified future had arrived, not through force or fear, but through the very cooperation that the Void Collective had tried to prevent. And as the stars seemed to shine brighter through humanity and the Alliance's new shared perception, they understood that this was only the beginning of their journey together.